Welcome, weary traveler, to a journey through time. Tonight, we drift back to an age often shrouded in mist and myth, the era of the Norse Vikings. For many, the very word Viking conjures images of fierce warriors, longships cutting through crashing waves, and the clash of steel. Yet, beyond these dramatic, often romanticized portrayals, lay a profound reality. A daily existence shaped by the relentless demands of an unforgiving land and a powerful, yet fragile, connection to the sea. We'll set aside the clamor of conflict, for a time letting it recede like a distant tide, and instead delve into the quiet, often overlooked rhythms of their daily existence. Tonight, we invite you to immerse yourself gently in the intricate textures of a bygone world. Allow your mind to wander softly, to absorb the subtle details, the quiet struggles, and the enduring resilience of a people whose lives were as rich and complex as the sagas they composed. This is not a journey designed to stir excitement, but rather to unfold history with a steady, unhurried pace, allowing the facts and observations to simply be. We aim for understanding, for a quiet contemplation of what life truly entailed. As the ambient sounds gently guide you, picture the vast, wild landscapes of Scandinavia, a tapestry of deep fjords, towering mountains, and ancient forests. Imagine the crisp, clean air, often carrying the scent of pine and salt. This was the stage upon which the Norse lived their lives, a stage that demanded both fortitude and ingenuity. Find a comfortable place now, wherever you may be. Let your breath deepen, slowing with each exhale, feeling the tension in your body gently release. Allow the stories of the distant past to carry you towards a restful slumber, a tranquil journey into the heart of history. Tonight, we explore the hidden truths of a Norse Viking settlement, and much, much more. The hidden truths of a Norse Viking settlement. Imagine yourself, for a moment, not in the reassuring comfort of your modern space, but waking within the confines of a Norse longhouse, somewhere in the harsh, beautiful landscape of 9th or 10th century Scandinavia. The earliest light of dawn might be just beginning to filter through a small, translucent membrane window, or more likely through the smoke hole in the roof, casting a dim, shifting illumination across the interior. The air that fills your lungs is thick, heavy with the persistent scent of wood smoke from the central hearth, mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil and straw from the floor. Beneath these, you might detect the faint, lingering aroma of cured meats hanging from the rafters, a precious food source carefully preserved for the long, lean months, and perhaps the unavoidable, subtle scent of unwashed bodies, human and animal alike, living in close proximity. You stir on a simple sleeping platform, a raised wooden structure, likely shared with other members of your family unit, or even extended kin. These platforms would be covered with layers of animal hides, sheepskin, reindeer fur, or bearskin if you were particularly fortunate, offering a modicum of warmth and insulation against the biting chill that perpetually seeps through the uninsulated walls of turf, timber, or stone. The very act of rising would be deliberate, slow, as you emerge from the cocoon of warmth into the ever-present coolness of the dwelling. Stepping outside, even for a brief moment, would immediately reveal the pervasive cold, a persistent, tangible presence in these northern latitudes. It's not merely a low temperature, it's a deep, penetrating chill that seems to cling to everything, even indoors. Despite the constant effort to maintain a fire, the heat from the central hearth struggles against the drafts that inevitably find their way through gaps in the construction. Winter in the Norse lands was not merely a season on a calendar, it was a profound challenge, a test of endurance that stretched human limits. Survival, for both individuals and the entire settlement, hinged on meticulous and foresightful preparation during the brief, often unpredictable summer and autumn months. You would have felt this chill deep in your bones, a constant companion that shaped every decision. From the layered, heavy clothing you wore, typically thick wool tunics, trousers, and cloaks, often supplemented with leather or fur, to the very architecture of your home, expertly designed to conserve every precious degree of warmth generated by the central fire, and the warmth radiating from the bodies within. Your day would begin before the sun truly broke the horizon. The light, filtering in through a small opening or the smoke hole, would be dim and diffuse, necessitating the use of simple lamps. These lamps, often made of clay or stone, would contain animal fat or fish oil, with a wick providing a small, flickering flame, barely enough to illuminate the immediate surroundings. The first sounds to greet your waking ears would be the stirring of livestock, which were often housed at one end of the longhouse. A simple partition, perhaps a woven screen or a wooden wall, might separate human from beast, but their presence was undeniable. You'd hear the gentle grunting of pigs, the soft clucking of chickens seeking their morning grains, and the rhythmic bleating of sheep. Their collective body warmth, however modest, contributed a crucial, if often unacknowledged, element to the overall temperature of the dwelling, a testament to the integrated nature of Norse life where animals were not just resources, but partners in survival. Food, or rather, the constant struggle for food, would dominate much of your waking thought and energy. The diet of a Viking Age farmer was simple, robust, and entirely dictated by the land, the sea, and the season. Porridge, often made from barley or oats, would be a staple, prepared slowly over the hearth, a comforting, if monotonous, start to the day. This might be supplemented by some dried fish, a crucial protein source, carefully preserved through salting or air drying, or, if you were fortunate, a small portion of meat, perhaps from a successful hunt or an animal that had been slaughtered. Recently, the majority of meat consumption came from livestock like cattle, sheep, and pigs, but hunting for wild game like deer, elk, or even small birds provided vital dietary variety. Vegetables were limited to what could be grown in short, often challenging growing seasons. Root crops like turnips and carrots were hardy and could be stored for winter. Cabbage and various wild greens, foraged from the surrounding landscape, would also feature. The flavors of your meals would be earthy, often bland by modern standards, and repetition would be the norm. Imagine the distinct, briny taste of salted fish, its intense flavor a constant reminder of the sea's bounty, and the careful preservation techniques essential for survival. Berries and nuts gathered in the summer would be precious additions, providing brief bursts of sweetness and vital nutrients. The communal meal, however simple, was a significant event, a moment of shared sustenance and connection within the family or larger household. The arduous farming tasks would begin with the first light, regardless of weather. Fields were typically small, often rocky, carved out of the dense forest or cleared from marginal lands. They were tilled with simple, heavy wooden plows, sometimes reinforced with iron, drawn laboriously by oxen or, if your family was among the more prosperous, by horses. The soil was often stubborn, resisting cultivation, and the yields, even in good years, were frequently meager. A single poor harvest, perhaps due to an unexpected frost, excessive rain, or a prolonged drought, could mean outright starvation for a family or even an entire settlement. You would spend countless hours in these fields, your hands calloused and rough from repeated friction, your back aching from the constant bending and lifting. You would be planting precious seeds of barley or rye, weeding small plots of precious vegetables, or tirelessly mending the fences that protected your crops from stray livestock or wild animals. The rhythm of your life would be entirely dictated by the sun's arc across the sky, the capriciousness of the rain, and the demanding, unyielding cycle of agricultural labor. There were no shortcuts, no elaborate machinery, only the raw, unadorned power of human and animal effort, a profound connection to the very earth that sustained you. Hygiene, as we understand and practice it today, was a very different concept. In the Viking Age, water, vital for any form of cleaning, would need to be fetched, often from a distant well or a flowing stream, a cold and tiring chore, especially in winter when ice had to be broken. Baths were infrequent, perhaps once a week if circumstances allowed, and usually involved heating water over the central hearth, then carefully pouring it into a wooden tub, a significant luxury of effort and fuel. For daily cleanliness, most cleaning would be more functional. A quick rinse of the hands and face. The pervasive scent of wood smoke, while often irritating to the eyes, ironically helped to mask other, less pleasant odors, and the close proximity to animals and other people meant that personal space, and indeed the very concept of it, was severely limited. Everyone shared in the reality of living in close quarters. Disease, often stemming from poor sanitation, limited understanding of contagion, and inadequate nutrition, was an ever-present, insidious threat. Simple infections that we easily treat today with antibiotics could quickly turn deadly, leading to agonizing fevers or debilitating conditions. Common ailments like dysentery, respiratory infections, or even dental problems could become life-threatening. Infant mortality rates were tragically high, and life expectancy was significantly shorter than in modern times. A minor cut could lead to a fatal infection. A persistent cough could be a precursor to a fatal lung ailment. This constant vulnerability to illness added another layer of quiet anxiety to daily life. Consider the constant demand for manual labor that permeated every single aspect of life. From the moment you woke until the last embers of the hearth faded, physical effort and practical skill were paramount. There was no specialization of labor in the way we know it in modern society, where individuals focus on a single craft or profession. Instead, everyone contributed to the collective survival. Women would be responsible for the intricate and time-consuming process of processing food, grinding grain, churning butter, preserving meats and fish. They were also skilled in textile production, spinning wool into thread, weaving that thread into cloth on upright looms, and then cutting and sewing garments. They would prepare animal hides for clothing or shelter and, crucially, care for children, often teaching them vital skills from a very young age. Men would handle the heavier agricultural work, clear land, engage in hunting and fishing expeditions that provided vital protein, and be skilled in crafting tools and weapons from iron or wood, repairing homes and building ships. Children, far from being simply dependents, would be expected to contribute to household chores and farm tasks from a young age, learning the skills necessary for survival through observation, direct instruction, and active participation in the daily rhythm of the settlement. Their childhood, while perhaps containing moments of play, was ultimately a preparation for a life of ceaseless labor. Even the most basic comfort required significant, sustained effort. Firewood had to be chopped, split, and gathered from the forests, a never-ending task to fuel the central hearth. Water had to be consistently carried from its source, often in heavy wooden buckets. Clothes had to be laboriously spun, meticulously woven, and carefully sewn by hand, with repairs being a constant necessity to prolong their lifespan. There was no downtime in the modern sense of leisure and relaxation. Rest was a recovery from labor, a period of recuperation, not an absence of purposeful activity. Even evenings would be filled with practical tasks like mending nets, sharpening tools, or telling stories that served to pass on cultural knowledge and moral lessons. The longhouse itself was far more than just a dwelling. It was a testament to communal living, practical necessity, and a deeply ingrained connection to the land. Imagine a single, large, rectangular room, perhaps stretching 20 to 30 meters or even longer, with an earthen floor that would be swept regularly but never entirely free of dirt. A central hearth, a long pit lined with stones, would provide the only consistent heat and light, its smoke slowly rising to escape through the smoke hole in the roof, often leaving a telltale film of soot on everything within. The walls, the rafters, even the occupants themselves. Along the walls, raised wooden platforms served as multi-purpose areas for sleeping at night, for storage of personal belongings during the day, and as work areas for crafting or preparing food. Families lived in close proximity, their lives interwoven, with little personal privacy in the modern sense. The sounds of their daily lives, quiet conversation, the rhythmic creak of wood, the sizzle of cooking food, the occasional cries of infants, the quiet snore of a sleeping relative would fill the space, creating a constant, living symphony of communal existence. Beyond the immediate chores and the day-to-day grind, there was the ever-present threat of harsh winters. These were not merely cold seasons, but prolonged periods of potential isolation, intense scarcity, and profound darkness. Supplies of food and fuel had to be meticulously managed, portioned out with extreme care to ensure they lasted until spring. Animals vital for milk, meat, and labor had to be protected from the cold and predators. Maintaining spirits during the long, dark, and often claustrophobic months was also a challenge. The darkness of winter would have been profound, punctuated only by the flickering light of the hearth and the stars on clear nights. Survival through these protracted months was a testament to extraordinary resilience, meticulous planning, and a deep-seated cooperation within the community. Life in a Norse Viking settlement, for the common folk, was not a romanticized adventure of glorious battles and boundless riches. Instead, it was a grounded, arduous existence. It was a life of constant toil, of battling the relentless elements, and of relying on the sheer strength of your hands and the collective ingenuity of your community. It was a life where comfort, as we understand it, was a rare luxury and basic. Survival was not an abstract concept, but the primary daily goal, demanding constant vigilance and effort. It fostered a deep connection to the earth, the cycles of nature, and the unwavering bonds of kinship. Leif Erikson, the Viking who discovered America from the steady rhythm of daily life, within a Norse settlement, the quiet, repetitive tasks of farming and household management. Let us now turn our attention to a figure whose journeys stretch the boundaries of their known world, pushing beyond the familiar horizons of their fjords and islands. Leif Erikson. While the popular image of Vikings often conjures scenes of fierce, unyielding raids, dragon-headed longships striking fear into coastal communities, and the bold clash of steel in distant lands, Erikson represents a different, equally compelling, facet of their ambition. He embodies the relentless drive for exploration, the insatiable curiosity, and the quiet, yet profound, courage to venture into the vast, unknown expanses of the ocean. His story is one of discovery driven not solely by conquest, but by a practical search for resources and a deep, inherent human desire to see what lies beyond the next wave. Leif Erikson's narrative is deeply rooted in the harsh, yet compelling, landscapes of Greenland. He was the son of Eric the Red, a figure whose name resonates through Norse history as the legendary founder of the Norse settlement in Greenland. Eric himself was a man whose life was inextricably marked by a pattern of exile and discovery. First banished from Norway, then from Iceland, he sought refuge and new opportunity by sailing westward, eventually finding and naming Greenland, a name perhaps chosen to entice future settlers to its icy shores. Leif grew up in this remote, challenging environment, a world where the sea was both a generous provider of food and trade routes, and simultaneously a formidable, often dangerous barrier. The lessons learned in these unforgiving lands, the intricate art of seamanship, the unyielding demand for resilience in the face of adversity, and a deep, almost intuitive understanding of natural signs and weather patterns, would prove absolutely crucial for his later, epic-making voyages across the vast Atlantic. He learned to read the subtle language of the clouds, the currents, and the migrating birds, understanding that survival on the open ocean depended on constant observation and a profound respect for nature's power. The sagas, those ancient Norse narratives that beautifully blend historical accounts with elements of legend and heroic poetry, are our primary source for understanding life's journey. What they convey is that his voyage was not a sudden, impetuous impulse, a reckless dash into the unknown. Rather, it was a logical progression of accumulated knowledge, coupled with an astute recognition of opportunity. The sagas, specifically the saga of Eric the Red and the saga of the Greenlanders, mention a merchant named Bjarni Herjolfsson. Years earlier, Bjarni, while sailing from Iceland to Greenland, had been blown significantly off course by a powerful storm. Upon regaining his bearings, he reported sighting lands to the west, lands that were noticeably forested, undulating with trees, and strikingly unlike the treeless, icy shores of Greenland. Bjarni, with his cargo and destination in mind, chose not to land and explore these new territories, but the tantalizing hint of these undiscovered lands would have lingered powerfully. In the minds of the Greenlandic Norse, they were a community, always seeking new resources, and most especially timber, which was agonizingly scarce in Greenland. Building, heating, and shipbuilding all depended on this vital material. It was this very scarcity of timber, perhaps more than any single factor, that likely spurred Leif Erikson to action. Trees were not merely for construction. They were a fundamental necessity for maintaining a viable settlement in such a remote location. Timber was essential for building and repairing their longhouses, for crafting tools, for producing charcoal for their iron forges, and most critically, for constructing and maintaining the very ships that connected them to the wider Norse world. An expedition to find new sources was therefore not merely an adventure, a quest for glory. It was a profound, practical necessity for the continued survival and prosperity of their small, isolated colony. The sagas suggest Leif purchased Bjarni's ship, a vessel already proven capable of traversing the Atlantic, indicating a well-considered and strategic approach to his undertaking. Leif Erikson embarked on his momentous voyage sometime around the year 1000 CE. Imagine, for a moment, the meticulous and exhaustive preparation for such an undertaking. The ship they would use would likely have been a Nair, a sturdy, broad-beamed cargo vessel, designed for carrying provisions and goods across open water rather than for swift raiding. It would have been provisioned with vast quantities of dried fish, carefully cured meat, fresh water stored in barrels, and perhaps even some livestock, like sheep or pigs, to serve as a mobile food source or to establish a breeding population in any new lands. Navigation, by modern standards, was rudimentary, but for the Norse, it was an art honed over generations. They relied intrinsically on the observation of the sun's position at various times of day, the fixed patterns of stars in the night sky, the subtle pull and drift of ocean currents, and the flight patterns of various birds, particularly seabirds, that returned to land. It demanded an intimate, almost spiritual connection with nature, an intuitive understanding of the sea's subtle cues and warnings, a constant, low-level vigilance. His journey westward would have been an extended, arduous passage, pushing the limits of their sturdy vessels and, more significantly, their human endurance. Days would blur into weeks on the open ocean, punctuated by the rhythmic creak of timbers, the slap of waves against the hull, and the vast, empty expanse of the sea and sky. They likely first encountered a land they called Helgeland, meaning flat stone land. The sagas describe it as having large, flat stones and glaciers, a stark and desolate coast, widely believed by modern scholars to correspond to Baffin Island in modern-day Canada. This was not the fertile land they sought, but it confirmed the existence of land to the west. Then, after sailing further south, they came upon Markland, which translates to forest land. This region, believed to be parts of Labrador, would have appeared as a welcome sight to the timber-starved Greenlanders. It was described as abundant with dense forests, a rich source of the timber that was so desperately needed. This was a crucial discovery, providing immediate practical benefit. But Leif, driven by Bjarni's earlier description and perhaps by an innate, almost insatiable curiosity, pressed even further south. He eventually found a place he called Vinland, a name that has been the subject of much academic debate, translating either to wine land referring to grapes or pasture land, referring to abundant grasses. This region, now widely accepted to be Newfoundland, and particularly the area known today as Land's Ox Meadows, was described in the sagas as abundant with wild grapes or perhaps berries that were mistaken for grapes, which could be fermented into a wine-like drink, and teeming with salmon-filled rivers. Imagine, for a moment, the profound sight for these hardy Norsemen, accustomed to the stark, treeless barrenness of Greenland, lush, vibrant forests stretching to the horizon, fertile ground promising bountiful harvests, and a notably milder climate, a verdant paradise. After their long journey at Vinland, Leif and his crew established a temporary settlement, building several large structures. These were not mere temporary shelters or flimsy huts, but well-constructed houses capable of accommodating a significant number of people, strongly suggesting an intent for a more extended, perhaps even permanent, stay. For a short but significant period, they lived off the land, exploring the abundant resources and perhaps cautiously, even tentatively, interacting with the indigenous peoples they encountered. These native inhabitants were referred to in the Norse sagas as Skrælings, a term that likely carried a sense of wretched or barbarian, reflecting the cultural differences and initial mistrust. The sagas describe both instances of peaceful interaction and, unfortunately, frequent violent clashes with the Skrælings. These interactions were often fraught with misunderstanding, suspicion, and a clash of territorial claims, likely exacerbated by linguistic barriers and vastly different worldviews. The inherent danger and logistical challenges presented by these interactions ultimately contributed to the Norse decision not to establish a truly permanent, long-term colony. The immense distance from their home in Greenland, the profound challenges of sustained communication and trade with the indigenous inhabitants who already occupied the land, and the sheer logistical difficulty of maintaining and supplying such a distant outpost eventually led to the abandonment of the Vinland settlement after only a few years. It was a remarkable achievement, a temporary foothold, but not a lasting presence. Leif Erikson eventually returned to Greenland, carrying with him not only a precious cargo of timber, a vital resource, but also astonishing news of the new lands to the west. He is also significantly credited with bringing Christianity to Greenland, a profound cultural and religious shift for his community, moving them away from their traditional Norse pagan beliefs. His life after the momentous Vinland voyage seems to have been less about further grand exploration and more about leadership within the established Greenlandic settlement. Focusing on its stability and growth, he became a respected figure, a living legend within his own time, whose tales of the western lands would have been recounted by hearthlight for generations. For centuries, the archaeological evidence for the Norse presence in North America remained elusive, causing the Vinland sagas to be regarded by many as simply folklore. Fascinating tales but lacking concrete proof. However, in the 1960s, a truly remarkable and groundbreaking discovery at Land's Ox Meadows in northern Newfoundland finally and unequivocally confirmed the saga's historical truth. Archaeologists, led by Helge and Stein Ingsted, uncovered the clear, unmistakable remains of a Norse settlement. They found the well-preserved foundations of several large longhouses, unmistakably Norse in design. Crucially, they unearthed a forge for working iron, a technology entirely unknown to the indigenous peoples of the area at that time, proving a European presence. Alongside these structures, various undeniable artifacts of Norse origin were found, including a bronze pin used for cloaks, a soapstone spindle wheel used for spinning yarn, evidence of domestic Norse female presence, and bone tools clearly consistent with Norse craftsmanship. This site provided irrefutable proof that Vikings, under Leif Erikson's leadership, had indeed reached North America nearly 5 centuries before Christopher Columbus. Leif Erikson's legacy is not just one of simple geographical discovery. It is a profound testament to the human spirit's inherent capacity for endurance, its quiet courage, and the often unsung pursuit of new horizons. His voyage reminds us, with gentle insistence, that history is often far richer, more complex, and more layered than the familiar narratives we are taught. It is filled with forgotten chapters, quiet triumphs, and moments of incredible human endeavor that deserve to be slowly, thoughtfully illuminated. The North Atlantic, a vast and often terrifying expanse, became for a brief, powerful moment a bridge between two worlds. The secrets of the runes, unlocking ancient Norse messages from the vastness of the ocean, stretching beyond familiar horizons to new lands, and from the grand scale of Viking ships undertaking perilous voyages. Let us now turn our attention to something much smaller, yet equally profound and endlessly fascinating: the runes. These ancient symbols, often carved with meticulous care into materials as diverse as stone, wood, bone, and gleaming metal, are more than mere letters. They are the very voices of the Norse past, offering us quiet, intimate glimpses into their deepest beliefs, the everyday realities of their daily lives, and the intricate workings of their thoughts. More than just a simple alphabet, runes were widely believed to be imbued with a subtle, yet powerful, sense of mystery and innate power, forming a system of writing that resonates deeply with the whispers of forgotten ages and the wisdom of their ancestors. The precise origins of runic writing are, like many aspects of ancient history, shrouded in a comfortable, deep mist of time, allowing for a certain contemplative wonder. Scholars who dedicate their lives to this intricate study generally believe that runes developed from older Italic scripts, perhaps through early contact with Germanic tribes who then, over centuries, spread them across vast swathes of northern Europe. The earliest known runic inscriptions that have been discovered and reliably dated trace back to approximately the 2nd century CE, marking the beginning of their documented use. They continue to be actively used throughout the entire span of the Viking Age, which conventionally runs from the late 8th to the mid-11th century, and remarkably, their use even extended into the medieval period in some remote areas, demonstrating their enduring cultural significance and adaptability. Unlike the rounded, precise, and often flowing letters of the Roman alphabet that we are accustomed to today, runes are characterized by their distinctly straight, sharp, and angular lines. This particular design was not arbitrary. It was a highly practical adaptation, perfectly suited for the challenging act of carving into hard materials like rock, wood, or bone, where curved lines would be far more difficult to execute effectively. Imagine a Norse artisan, perhaps a skilled carver or even a chieftain with a penchant for artistry, sitting by the flickering, dancing light of a central hearth in a longhouse, or perhaps outdoors, feeling the crisp northern air on their face. With a small, sharp iron tool, they would be carefully and deliberately incising these powerful symbols into a piece of wood, a fragment of bone, or a smooth stone slab. The act itself would have been a profoundly deliberate, meditative process. Each stroke would have been carefully considered, each precise cut a testament to patience and skill. Every single symbol, a small marvel of ancient design, held a specific phonetic sound, representing a distinct consonant or vowel, and often, critically, a deeper, more symbolic meaning beyond its mere phonetic value. The most commonly studied and earliest complete runic alphabet is known to scholars as the Elder Futhark, a system comprising 24 distinct runes, each with its own name and significance. As the Viking Age progressed and the Norse languages evolved, this foundational alphabet underwent transformations, eventually leading to the development of the Younger Futhark, a simplified system with fewer characters, typically 16. This evolution is a subtle yet fascinating testament to the changing linguistic landscape of the time, reflecting how language, even in ancient societies, was a dynamic and living entity. The various uses of runes offer us a rich tapestry that reveals the remarkable breadth and depth of Norse life. The most prominent and visually striking examples we encounter today are the majestic runestones. These impressive standing stones, often towering and intricately carved, are found widely throughout Scandinavia, particularly in Sweden and Denmark. They serve primarily as memorials to the dead, erected not just to mark a burial site, but to celebrate the lives of fallen warriors, to recount adventurous journeys undertaken across vast seas, or simply to mark a family's lineage and claim to land. Imagine yourself standing quietly before one of these ancient, weathered monuments, feeling the cool, textured stone beneath your fingertips as you gently trace the carved lines that tell a story from 1,000 years ago. The inscriptions on these stones are often somewhat formulaic, typically beginning with a dedication the stone was raised in memory of, followed by the name of the commemorated individual, and then details of their achievements, their status, their family relationships, or the person who commissioned the stone. They are not grand, sweeping historical narratives in the modern sense, but rather intimate, powerful echoes of individual lives, small windows into the personal histories and social structures of the time. Beyond these grand memorials, runes were used for a myriad of more mundane, yet equally fascinating, everyday purposes. We discover them carefully inscribed on personal belongings, the elegant curve of a bone comb, the inner band of a silver ring, the intricate pattern on a bronze brooch used to fasten clothing, or the handle of a simple wooden tool. Imagine finding a small, almost imperceptible carving on the handle of a well-worn wooden spoon, a simple marking of ownership, or perhaps a subtle, silent blessing intended to bring good fortune to its user. They also frequently appear on weapons, incised onto sword blades, axe heads, or spear shafts, often with the dual purpose of invoking divine protection for the warrior, or to symbolically enhance the blade's inherent power and sharpness. Imagine the faint, almost imperceptible inscription on a sword hilt, a silent plea for strength and victory in battle, a whispered charm against an opponent. These small, private inscriptions offer a unique intimacy, connecting us directly to the daily thoughts and protective rituals of the people who used them. Perhaps one of the most intriguing and debated aspects of runes is their deeply felt connection to magic and divination. Beyond their phonetic and literal meanings, each rune was believed to possess not only a specific sound value, but also a potent, symbolic meaning, often linked to profound concepts like wealth and prosperity, physical protection, safe passage on a journey, or inherent strength and courage. Some scholars and historical texts strongly suggest that runes were actively used for casting spells, for warding off evil, or for seeking guidance and prophecies from the Norse gods and goddesses. Imagine a Norse shaman, known as a Seikona, a female practitioner of Sire, a form of Norse magic, or a wise man, carefully casting small, smooth pieces of wood or bone, each meticulously carved with a different rune onto a designated cloth or animal hide. They would then meticulously interpret the patterns they formed, seeking messages from the spiritual realm, deciphering omens, or discerning the will of the unseen forces that govern their world. While direct, explicit archaeological evidence of elaborate magical rituals involving runes might be scarce and difficult to definitively interpret, the inherent symbolic weight of the runes, their very names and associated meanings, strongly suggests that they were seen as far more than mere letters. They were considered powerful keys to understanding the cosmos, channels for connecting with the divine, and tools for influencing destiny. The ongoing efforts to decipher these ancient, enigmatic messages are a testament to their enduring allure and the human desire to understand the past. Runologists, the dedicated scholars who specialize in this field, act much like linguistic detectives, meticulously piecing together fragmentary inscriptions, comparing different runic traditions across various regions and time periods, and carefully analyzing subtle linguistic shifts and dialectal variations that occurred over centuries. Through this painstaking work, they strive to unlock the full, nuanced meanings of these ancient texts, bringing the voices of the past into the present. Each new discovery of a runic artifact, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, adds another crucial piece to the vast, complex, and ever-expanding puzzle of Norse history. Their language and their profound way of thinking. Consider for a moment the remarkable Gorvel's brooch, a small, exquisitely crafted piece of jewelry discovered in England, dating from the 9th century. Its elegant form is adorned with a delicate runic inscription that, when translated, reads, "Here is a runic carving from the past century. I have traveled from distant lands." This simple, yet poignant message speaks volumes about the movement of people and objects across vast distances in the Viking Age, hinting at the journeys of its owner and the enduring power of the written word. Or contemplate the monumental stone in Sweden, one of the most famous and extensively inscribed runestones known. Its inscription is a complex and lengthy poem filled with riddles, enigmatic verses, and profound allusions to Norse mythology, still debated and interpreted by scholars today, 1,000 years after it was carved. These are not merely words etched into stone. They are vibrant portals to a different way of thinking, a profoundly different worldview, offering us a window into the intellectual and spiritual life of the ancient Norse. The enduring beauty of runes lies not only in their profound historical significance, as a record of a bygone era, but also in their quiet artistry. Each character is a small, compact work of design, a marvel of ancient topography, a carefully considered symbol laden with multiple layers of meaning. They speak to a culture that implicitly valued brevity, clarity of expression, and an inherent strength, all intertwined with a deep, almost spiritual connection to the natural world around them. Unlocking the secrets of the runes is akin to hearing the faint, resonant voices of the past, whispering their stories across the centuries, patiently waiting to be understood. It allows us to connect with the very essence of ancient Norse communication, their beliefs, and their unique way of perceiving the world. Beyond the raids, the power and prestige of a Norse jarl, having explored the daily grind of a common Norse farmer experiencing the fundamental realities of their persistent struggle against nature, and having sailed alongside the intrepid voyages of their explorers, pushing the very boundaries of the known world. And having delved into the mystical and intellectual realm of their runic writing system, let us now turn our attention to the pinnacle of Norse society. Our focus shifts to the figure of the Jarl, pronounced Jarl, a title signifying a position of immense authority and profound respect, far from the often simplified or even caricatured image of a mere chieftain leading wild raids. The Jarl was a figure of truly significant power, undeniable prestige, and vast responsibility, standing at the very heart of the intricate and often rigid social hierarchy that meticulously defined Viking society. Understanding their lives, their duties, and their environment allows us to reveal a more nuanced, a far richer and more complex picture of Norse governance, the distribution of wealth, and the deeply interconnected fabric of their communities. Imagine, for a moment, that you are stepping across the threshold into the fortified hall of a Jarl, a structure that was notably grander, significantly more substantial, and far more imposing than the humble, shared longhouse of the common folk. This would not be a simple dwelling designed merely for shelter, but rather a prominent center of power, a designated gathering place for the community, and an unmistakable symbol of unwavering authority. The very architecture would convey this status. The walls would be notably thicker, perhaps constructed of massive timbers or carefully laid stone. The interior might be adorned with impressive tapestries woven with intricate patterns, depicting scenes from revered myths, heroic deeds of ancestors, or the triumphs of the Jarl's own lineage, providing both decoration and a continuous visual narrative of their heritage. The central hearth, the beating heart of the hall, would be much larger, designed to accommodate substantial logs, casting a warmer, more inviting, and far more dominant glow than that of a common dwelling. The air, while still carrying the familiar, comforting scent of wood smoke, might also be subtly mingled with richer aromas, the savory scent of generously roasted meat, perhaps wild game or prime domestic livestock, and the distinctive, malty fragrance of freshly brewed ale or sweet mead, signifying abundance and hospitality. A Jarl's authority was not solely, nor even primarily, based on their military prowess or their ability to lead successful raids, though that was certainly an important and expected component of their role. Their power was a complex tapestry, built on a strong combination of inherited lineage, tracing their ancestry back to powerful, respected figures, demonstrated leadership, proving their capability through decisive action and wise counsel, and, crucially, the ability to command unwavering loyalty from their followers, a loyalty often secured through protection, generosity, and justice. A Jarl was unequivocally responsible for the overall well-being and prosperity of their entire community. This encompassed a vast array of duties, meticulously resolving disputes among families or individuals to prevent blood feuds, leading in times of both defensive war and offensive expeditions, and diligently organizing complex networks of trade and the equitable distribution of vital resources. They were the ultimate arbiters of justice, presiding over legal proceedings, ensuring fairness by their standards, and enforcing the laws. They were seen as the protectors of the weak and vulnerable within their domain, and crucially, they were the strategic minds guiding their people through the tumultuous and unpredictable challenges of their world. Whether navigating political alliances or planning for the next harvest, life within a Jarl's hall was a constant, living testament to their considerable wealth and elevated status. While the common folk outside toiled relentlessly in the fields or at their crafts, the Jarl and their immediate retinue, their family, their closest warriors, and their loyal retainers would regularly partake in elaborate feasts. Imagine the scene: long, sturdy wooden tables, perhaps hewn from single, massive trees, laden almost to breaking point with platters piled high with generously roasted wild game, the rich, dark meat of venison, the savory richness of boar, or various types of fowl. These would be supplemented with carefully cured fish, rich cheeses, and various grains baked into bread or cooked into hearty stews. Drinking horns, often beautifully carved and sometimes adorned with silver, filled with potent ale or sweet, honeyed mead, would be passed around, ensuring the flow of camaraderie and festivity. The sounds of lively conversation, hearty laughter, and perhaps the measured tones of a skald's recitation would fill the hall, creating a vibrant, communal atmosphere. These feasts were far more than simple opportunities for sustenance. They were crucial social events, meticulously orchestrated opportunities for the Jarl to display their immense generosity, to forge and reinforce vital alliances with other powerful families or Jarls, and to constantly reinforce their inherent authority and prestige within their own community. Skalds, the revered poets of the Norse world, might recite ancient sagas, epic tales of gods and heroes, or even more significantly, compose new verses specifically in praise of the Jarl, detailing their virtues, their victories, and their noble lineage, further solidifying their reputation and enhancing their legend. The Jarl's elevated position also afforded them a degree of luxury that was largely unknown and unattainable to the common farmer. Their clothing, for instance, would be noticeably finer, crafted from higher quality wool, meticulously spun and woven. These garments might be dyed in vibrant, rich colors derived from rare natural pigments, colors that spoke of wealth and status. They might even be embellished with precious, imported silks obtained through distant trade, or with valuable furs from rare animals, setting them apart visually. They would possess more elaborate, intricately designed jewelry, crafted from gleaming silver or lustrous gold, showcasing the distinctive, complex knotwork and stylized animal motifs characteristic of Norse art. This jewelry was not merely ornamentation, but often functioned as symbols of power and accumulated wealth. Their weapons, too, reflecting their dual role as leaders and warriors, would be of superior craftsmanship, often adorned with precious metals, intricate inlays, and exquisite detailing, reflecting both their undeniable martial prowess and their substantial wealth. Even their everyday implements might be subtly more refined, hinting at a life lived with greater comfort and access to skilled artisans. The social hierarchy within a Jarl's domain was complex, deeply ingrained, and clearly defined, providing a stable, albeit rigid, structure for society. Below the Jarl were the Carls, who represented the vast majority of the free farmers and landowners. These were the independent householders, the backbone of the community, responsible for much of the agricultural output. They formed the basis of the Lyding, the levy that constituted the core of the Viking army, a system of mandatory military service for free men. At the lowest rung of this societal ladder were the thralls, or slaves, individuals often captured during successful raids on foreign lands or born into servitude within the Norse community. These thralls performed the most arduous, least desirable, and often dangerous tasks, forming a fundamental, though exploited, labor force. The Jarl meticulously maintained this intricate social order, ensuring the smooth flow of resources from the land and from trade, and striving for internal peace, or, when opportunities rose, leading profitable external conflict through raiding and expansion. Their oversight was constant, their decisions impactful. A Jarl's influence extended significantly beyond the boundaries of their immediate settlement or their personal land holdings. They were often key players in extensive trade networks, sending their sturdy ships loaded with valuable commodities across vast seas. These ships would carry goods like precious furs, highly prized amber, high-quality iron ore, and vital timber, exchanging them for exotic goods from distant lands, gleaming silver from the Arabic Caliphates, luxurious silks from Byzantium or the Far East, and aromatic spices from the Mediterranean. These trade expeditions were absolutely vital for the economic prosperity of their entire region, bringing in wealth and exotic goods that enhanced the Jarl's personal wealth and, crucially, their prestige among other leaders. Imagine the careful, often tense negotiation of trade agreements, the meticulous packing of goods for long sea voyages, and the eager anticipation of new riches arriving from far-off shores, transforming the Jarl's Hall into a hub of international commerce. In times of war, whether defensive or offensive, the Jarl seamlessly transformed into a formidable military leader. They would rally their Carls, calling upon their free farmers to fulfill their military obligations. They would then meticulously organize their fleet of ships, whether swift longships for raiding or sturdier nares for transport, and carefully plan expeditions. These might be for defensive purposes, protecting their lands and people from external threats, or for the lucrative and often brutal practice of raiding foreign lands for plunder and captives. While the sagas often glorify the ferocity and unyielding courage of Viking warriors, the Jarl's role involved far more than just leading from the front. It demanded astute strategic thinking, meticulous logistical planning for provisions and routes, and the heavy responsibility for the lives of their men. Their success or failure in these military endeavors directly and profoundly impacted their reputation, their ability to maintain their hard-won power, and the overall prosperity of their domain. A series of defeats could quickly erode their authority. The Jarl's Hall was also a crucial center for justice and law. Disputes between individuals or families, often stemming from insults, property claims, or violent acts, would be brought before the Jarl, or more commonly, to the local thing pronounced ting. The thing was a unique and vital assembly of all free men within a specific region, a form of ancient participatory governance. Here, under the open sky, presided over by the Jarl or a designated law speaker, laws were publicly recited from memory, arguments were heard from all parties, and judgments were rendered. It was a place where precedents were set, where grievances could be aired, and where the community had a collective voice, even if the ultimate authority for enforcing decisions often rested with the Jarl. Imagine the measured tones of discussion, the careful weighing of evidence, and the profound importance of precedent in maintaining social order and preventing endless cycles of retribution in a society without formal police forces or prisons. The power of a Norse Jarl, therefore, was not absolute in the sense of a divine monarch, but it was undoubtedly significant, deeply interwoven with their community's well-being. It was a power earned through demonstrated strength, meticulously maintained through wisdom and fair judgment, and grandly celebrated through ceremony, feasting, and the enduring power of tradition. Their lives, while undeniably privileged compared to the common folk, were also laden with immense responsibilities for the well-being, defense, and prosperity of their people. It was a delicate, demanding balance between the burdens of leadership and the raw, unyielding demands of their often unforgiving world. A life lived constantly on the edge of ambition and necessity. Conclusion as our extensive journey through the rich and multifaceted world of the Norse Vikings gently draws to a close, we can now begin, with a deeper sense of understanding, to appreciate the myriad layers of their complex existence. This journey has taken us far beyond the more familiar, often simplified tales of raiding axes and dragon-headed longships, revealing a civilization built on resilience, ingenuity, and a profound connection to their environment that we have, in our quiet exploration, walked the arduous paths of the common farmer, feeling the constant chill within their smoke-filled longhouses and sharing, in spirit, their perpetual struggle for survival against the unyielding demands of a harsh, yet beautiful, northern landscape. We have sailed, in our mind's eye, alongside the intrepid Leif Erikson, a figure of quiet courage, pushing the very boundaries of the known world, driven by a deep, inherent ambition and the tantalizing promise of new, fertile lands. We have pondered the enigmatic whispers of the ancient runes, tracing their angular symbols not merely as letters, but as conduits to deeper meanings, forgotten beliefs, and the very essence of Norse thought. And finally, we have seen, with greater clarity, the intricate tapestry of power and profound responsibility woven within the grand, fortified halls of the Jarls, the influential leaders who meticulously shaped, fiercely defended, and carefully guided their communities through an age of both great challenge and remarkable innovation. The lives of the Norse people, in all their various forms, from the humblest thrall to the most powerful Jarl, from the skilled artisan to the daring explorer, were undeniably defined by a remarkable degree of resilience, an enduring spirit of ingenuity in the face of scarcity, and an almost spiritual, deeply ingrained connection to their environment, both land and sea. They were, truly, a people of the earth and the rolling waves whose stories, both the grand, celebrated sagas and the quiet, mundane realities of daily existence, continue to echo through the centuries, whispering lessons of adaptation and perseverance. Allow these echoes to gently recede now, to soften and diffuse, as the vivid images of communal longhouses, the vast, shimmering expanses of the ancient oceans, the intricate patterns of runic carvings, and the solemn grandeur of Viking halls begin to gradually soften and fade in your mind's quiet space. The distant past has generously offered its fascinating stories, its quiet lessons, and its timeless reflections. And now, as the historical currents gently slow, and the weight of distant times lifts, you can feel the reassuring, calming embrace of the present moment settling comfortably around you. The tranquil journey through time is complete. Let the quiet stillness of this historical journey settle profoundly around you. Feel the gentle release of any lingering thoughts or concerns. Rest deeply, knowing that the complexities of the past have unfolded in a measured, soothing way. As you drift further into comfort and serenity, may your slumber be peaceful, profound, and utterly undisturbed. Good night. Welcome, weary traveler, to another journey through the annals of history. A journey designed not to excite, but to soothe. Tonight, we will drift back in time to an ancient land of mist-shrouded mountains, elegant calligraphy, and the whisper of steel. We travel to feudal Japan to explore a life often romanticized, yet rarely understood in its full, intricate detail, the life of the samurai. Beyond the cinematic duels and tales of unwavering honor lay an existence of profound discipline, constant struggle, and a unique, often brutal, connection to the very fabric of society. For to peaceful hours, we will unpeel the layers of myth, revealing the authentic rhythms of their days, the burdens they carried, and the unseen realities that shaped these legendary warriors. Allow your mind to gently wander as we explore the hidden truths of samurai life, the relentless path of a young samurai apprentice. Imagine yourself, if you will, as a young boy in feudal Japan, perhaps no older than 7 or 8. Your lineage decrees your destiny. You are born to be a samurai. The morning mist still clings to the eaves of the dojo, yet you are already awake. The chill of the morning air a familiar sensation against your skin. This is the beginning of another day on the relentless path of a young samurai apprentice. Your breakfast is simple, purposeful. Perhaps a bowl of steamed rice, a few pickled vegetables, and a modest portion of fish or tofu. There's no indulgence here, only sustenance to fuel the demanding hours ahead. The atmosphere is one of quiet discipline, even among the youngest. Every action, from folding your sleeping mat to carefully arranging your eating utensils, is an exercise in mindfulness, a preparation for the precision demanded by the sword. Soon, the rigorous training begins. It starts not with the clash of steel, but with fundamental physical conditioning. Hours are spent in strenuous exercises, strengthening every muscle, improving flexibility and endurance. You might practice saburi, the repetitive swinging of a wooden sword thousands upon thousands of times until the movements become fluid, an extension of your very being. Each swing must be perfect, precise, a testament to unwavering focus. Your arms ache, your shoulders burn, but you continue, driven by an inner fortitude and the watchful eyes of your sensei. The dojo is a place of unwavering routine. The air is often thick with the scent of damp earth and sweat, punctuated by the sharp thud of wooden swords connecting, or the controlled exhales of breath during kai. Beyond the physical, there's the mental training. You learn to clear your mind, to focus on the present moment, to suppress fear and doubt. This is not merely about fighting. It is about cultivating inner stillness, a calm core that will serve you both in battle and in life. Discipline extends far beyond the dojo walls. Every aspect of your day is governed by the Bushido Code, the way of the warrior. This unwritten ethical framework dictates loyalty, honor, courage, sincerity, compassion, and respect. A misstep in etiquette, a moment of weakness, a failure to show proper deference. Each carries the weight of potential dishonor, not just for yourself, but for your family. The psychological burden of upholding this strict code is constant, a subtle, pervasive pressure that shapes your every thought and action. Consider the simple act of dressing, the layers of a kimono, the tying of the obi, the careful arrangement of your hair. Each is performed with a deliberate grace, a reflection of the samurai's commitment to order and presentation. Later, as you progress, the weight of light, armor, perhaps a lacquered breastplate or arm guards, becomes a part of your daily attire, offering a constant reminder of your role and the ever-present possibility of conflict. It is not designed for comfort, but for protection and readiness. Meal times, though simple, are also opportunities for discipline. You eat what is provided, without complaint, understanding that excess is a weakness. The diet remains largely plant-based: rice, vegetables, miso soup, sometimes fish. Meat is rare. The strength and resilience of a samurai came not from rich foods, but from rigorous training and a disciplined spirit. Even leisure, when it existed, was purposeful. Perhaps a quiet moment of meditation, calligraphy, or reading classic texts. There was little room for idle distraction. The sounds of daily life outside the dojo might filter in: the distant cries of street vendors, the clatter of wooden sandals on a path, the rustle of wind through bamboo groves. But within your world, the focus remains inward, on self-improvement and adherence to your path. The samurai's world was one of constant readiness, a quiet hum of preparation beneath the surface of daily life. Even in moments of stillness, the mind remained alert, trained to observe, to anticipate, to be present. The path was relentless, demanding sacrifice and unwavering commitment from a young age. It instilled a profound sense of duty and a willingness to face hardship with quiet resolve. This formative period shaped not just a warrior, but a unique individual, bound by a code that would define their entire existence. The challenges were immense, the comforts few, but the sense of purpose was absolute. Miyamoto Musashi, the Ronin's quest for perfection. From the disciplined, structured life of the young apprentice, we now turn our gaze to a figure who, though born into the samurai class, chose a path of radical independence and relentless self-mastery. We turn to the legendary swordsman and philosopher Miyamoto Musashi. His was a life defined not by service to a lord, but by an unceasing quest for perfection in the art of the sword. A solitary journey that would shape his legend, a legend still resonating through the centuries. Imagine him now, not in a grand castle or a bustling city, but on a dusty road, a lone figure moving through the quiet landscapes of feudal Japan. The crunch of his straw sandals on the gravel, the whisper of the wind through the tall grasses, the distant call of a cuckoo. These were the constant companions of his travels. Musashi was a ronin, a samurai without a master, a status that often carried connotations of disgrace or desperation. To be a ronin meant to be adrift, without the security of a daimyo's patronage, often relying on one's wits and martial skill for survival. Yet, for Musashi, it became a canvas for his unique philosophy, a path that allowed him an unparalleled freedom to pursue his chosen path, without the constraints of courtly duties or political intrigue. His earliest duels began at a remarkably young age, a testament to his innate talent and the harsh realities of the era. He claimed his first victory, and indeed his first killing, at 13. Picture the raw intensity of such an encounter: a young boy facing an older, more experienced warrior named Arima Kihei. The tension in the air, the cold glint of steel, the desperate scramble for advantage. Musashi's swift, decisive victory against such odds speaks volumes about his precocious skill and the unyielding resolve that would define his entire life. This early experience, born of necessity and self-preservation, undoubtedly forged a deep understanding of life's fragility and the absolute finality of the sword. Unlike many samurai who sought the stability and prestige of a lord's patronage, Musashi deliberately chose a life of constant movement and challenge. He roamed the land, from the bustling towns to the secluded mountain passes, seeking out masters of various martial arts schools. These were not duels of honor in the formal sense of a carefully arranged ceremony, but often impromptu, deadly tests of skill, quick wits, and an unyielding spirit. Imagine the profound silence that would fall before such a confrontation, broken only by the rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird before the sudden, explosive flash of steel. Each duel was a learning experience, a crucible in which his theories and techniques were tested against the sharpest minds and most formidable bodies of his time. He was not interested in simple victories, but in understanding the underlying principles of combat, the psychology of his opponents, and the true essence of the blade. His life was one of constant adaptation and rigorous self-reflection. When he wasn't dueling or traveling, he was observing, practicing, honing his technique, often alone in the wilderness. He rejected many of the conventions of his time, preferring simple, sometimes even disheveled, attire and a solitary existence over the elaborate rituals and trappings of court. This detachment from material possessions and social expectations allowed him to fully immerse himself in his craft, to live a life purely dedicated to the pursuit of mastery. He famously developed and refined his two-sword fighting style, known as Nighten Ichiryu, meaning to heavens as one school. Visualize the fluid, yet powerful movements, the simultaneous control of both a katana longsword and a wakizashi short sword, a strategy that would have been revolutionary and deeply disorienting to his opponents, who were accustomed to single-sword combat. It spoke to his innovative mind, his refusal to be bound by tradition if it hindered true effectiveness. He saw the potential for a richer, more versatile engagement, using the smaller blade for parrying or close-quarters attacks, while the larger one delivered decisive blows. Musashi's most famous duel against the highly skilled swordsman Sasaki Kojiro at Genryujima, the island of Galloping Horse, remains a vivid and iconic tale. The sheer drama of the event, whether fully historically accurate or partially embellished, captures the essence of Musashi's character. Imagine Musashi, seemingly unconcerned, arriving late, his appearance perhaps even disheveled, while Kojiro waited, meticulously prepared. And then, the legendary detail, Musashi carving a wooden sword, a bakken, from an or on his way to the island, seemingly underestimating his opponent. This act, whether a calculated psychological tactic or a true reflection of his improvisational genius, spoke volumes about his disdain for conventional showmanship and his focus on practical effectiveness. The duel itself would have been swift, brutal, and decisive, a clash of wills and skill that ended in Kojiro's death. Such victories solidified Musashi's reputation, yet also deepened his understanding of the fragility of life and the ultimate futility of violence, for its own sake, prompting a shift in his focus. As he aged, Musashi's quest for perfection evolved. His focus shifted increasingly from mere physical combat to the philosophical and spiritual underpinnings of his art. He found patronage later in life, notably with the Hosokawa clan, which provided him with the stability to commit his thoughts to writing. It was during this period, in the quiet solitude of a cave known as Reigenk, or mountain hermitage, that he meticulously composed the Book of Five Rings Go-Rin no Sho. Imagine him, perhaps by the flickering light of an oil lamp, carefully dipping his brush into ink, crafting his thoughts on strategy, timing, the psychology of combat, and the mental fortitude required for true mastery. The seminal text, structured around the five elements of earth, water, fire, wind, and void, offers profound insights not just into swordsmanship, but into broader principles of strategy, leadership, and personal development applicable to any competitive endeavor. It reflects a mind that had moved beyond mere technique, seeking a deeper, almost spiritual truth in the flow of combat and the rhythm of life itself. The Earth chapter lays out the foundational path. Water describes fluidity and adaptability. Fire speaks of battle and tactics. Wind delves into understanding other schools of thought. And void culminates in the concept of spontaneous, intuitive action, a state of egoless mastery. Musashi's journey was a testament to the power of continuous learning and radical adaptation. His life was a stark contrast to the structured, often politically entangled, service of many samurai, yet it demonstrated a different kind of dedication, a fiercely personal pursuit of excellence that resonated far beyond the battlefield. He embraced the hardships and uncertainties of his Ronin existence, using every challenge as an opportunity for growth, ultimately achieving a legendary status born from relentless self-perfection. His legacy continues to inspire, reminding us that true mastery is often found not in comfort or conventional paths, but in the crucible of ceaseless endeavor and profound self-reflection. The ninja's secrets, espionage, and shadows in feudal Japan. Having explored the overt discipline and honorable path of the samurai, We now turn our attention to the hidden counterpoint, a world shrouded in secrecy and misconception. We delve into the enigmatic realm of the ninja, examining their true historical role, their unique skills, and the quiet shadow they cast across the dramatic landscape of feudal Japan. Imagine, if you will, a different kind of warrior, one who shunned the battlefield's blaze for the whisper of the night, unlike the samurai, who were bound by a strict code of open honor and loyalty to their lords. The ninja operated in the moral gray areas, serving as specialists in espionage, sabotage, and infiltration. Their existence was pragmatic, often born of necessity. Their origins are not found in the grand courts or military academies, but in the mountainous, often remote regions of Iga and Keikei. These isolated areas fostered self-sufficiency and a pragmatic approach to warfare, far removed from the polished rituals and strict social hierarchies of the more powerful daimyo. Here, survival often depended on cunning, unconventional tactics, and a deep understanding of the natural environment, rather than direct, honorable confrontation. The popular image of the ninja, clad entirely in black, leaping across rooftops with supernatural agility, is largely a product of later fiction, particularly from the Edo period and beyond. The reality was far more subtle and arguably far more dangerous. Imagine a skilled ninja blending seamlessly into a bustling marketplace, disguised as a humble merchant, a traveling priest, a wandering street performer, or even a simple farmer. Their strength lay not in flashy acrobatics or overt displays of power, but in their absolute mastery of disguise, their profound knowledge of terrain, and their exceptional ability to gather intelligence without drawing any attention whatsoever. Their training was rigorous and encompassed a far wider range of skills than mere combat. It focused intently on silent movement, the art of concealment, wilderness survival, observation, and the ingenious use of various tools for infiltration. From grappling hooks and climbing claws to specialized lock-picking devices that could open the most complex of castle gates. Consider the meticulous practicalities of their missions. A ninja might be tasked with infiltrating a heavily fortified enemy castle. This was not a spontaneous act, but involved weeks, perhaps even months, of meticulous planning and reconnaissance. Imagine them patiently studying architectural layouts, understanding the subtle nuances of guard rotations, identifying weak points in defensive fortifications, and even learning the daily habits of key personnel within the castle walls. They might move under the cover of darkness, their footsteps almost imperceptible, utilizing every shadow and piece of natural cover. Their senses would be acutely attuned to every sound. The distant call of an owl, the shifting of wind, the subtle creak of a distant door, and every faint movement. They often employed specialized gear designed for stealth, such as the mizugumo, a peculiar device allowing them to traverse marshy ground or even appear to walk on water, though. More accurately, it was a flotation device for crossing shallow ponds or rivers. Small, collapsible boats or inflatable rafts were also part of their toolkit for crossing moats or waterwa. Is unnoticed. Their objective might be to steal crucial documents, spread disinformation to sow discord, or, in the most extreme cases, to assassinate a key figure with a swift, silent strike, often using undetectable poisons or specialized, quiet weapons that left little trace. The tools of the ninja were designed primarily for stealth, infiltration, and deception, rather than for direct, open combat. While they certainly possessed martial arts skills and could wield swords when necessary, their preferred arsenal was often less conventional. This included the infamous shuriken throwing stars, designed for distraction or disabling rather than lethal blows, specialized daggers, and various forms of concealed weapons, often disguised as everyday objects. Imagine the subtle glint of a Kaganawa grappling hook with a rope, as it secures a silent ascent up a wall, or the almost imperceptible rustle of a ninja moving through dense foliage, their dark clothing blending seamlessly into the night. They were masters of distraction and misdirection, using smoke bombs to create confusion, firecrackers to draw attention away, or even mimicking animal noises to communicate or to deceive guards. Their knowledge of poisons, explosives, and the preparation of various herbal concoctions was also highly developed. used both for offensive purposes, for creating diversions, or for self-defense. Beyond their practical and physical skills, the ninja also cultivated a deep understanding of psychology and human behavior. They were adept at exploiting fears, sowing distrust among enemies through misinformation, and gathering vital information through careful observation, listening, and subtle manipulation. Their very existence was, in a way, a psychological weapon. The mere rumor of ninja activity within an enemy's territory could instill widespread fear, paranoia, and internal suspicion, weakening morale and cohesion long before any direct action was taken. They understood that information was power and deception was a formidable weapon. The historical evidence for ninja, or shinobi, as they were often referred to, is often scarce and indirect. This is precisely due to the deeply secretive nature of their work and the fact that their exploits were not openly celebrated or meticulously recorded, like those of the samurai. However, references in various historical texts, including military chronicles, family scrolls passed down through generations, and even archaeological discoveries of specialized tools, provide tantalizing glimpses into their reality. These sources indicate that ninja were not mythical beings, but highly trained individuals who filled a crucial, albeit covert and often morally ambiguous, role in the complex and turbulent power struggles of feudal Japan. They were the silent architects of intelligence, the unseen hand that could subtly shift the balance of power, operating in the shadows where the rigid samurai code of honor dared not tread. Their legacy endures as a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and the effectiveness of unconventional warfare, forming a quiet, profoundly fascinating, and often misunderstood chapter in Japan's rich and turbulent past. The daimyo's castle, power, art, and intrigue. From the shadowy world of the ninja and the solitary path of the ronin, we now ascend to the apex of feudal Japanese society, to the very heart of power and wealth, the daimyo's castle. This was not merely a defensive stronghold, but a living symbol of authority, a hub of political intrigue, artistic patronage, and a world away from the daily struggles of commoners, or even the disciplined life of a lower-ranking samurai. Imagine standing before a magnificent Japanese castle, perhaps Heimji-jo, the White Heron Castle, its elegant, multi-tiered roofs soaring towards the sky. These structures, built with immense effort and ingenuity, were engineering marvels, designed not only to withstand sieges, but also to project overwhelming power and prestige. As you approach, consider the sheer scale: massive stone foundations, intricate wooden structures, and sophisticated defensive systems like the labyrinthine pathways designed to confuse attackers. The outer walls were often surrounded by wide moats, sometimes filled with water, other times dry with strategically placed obstacles. Every design element, from the size of the gates to the angles of the watchtowers, spoke of strategic thought. Stepping inside the castle grounds, you would find a bustling, yet meticulously ordered world. Unlike the sparse existence of a commoner, the daimyo's life was one of relative luxury and immense responsibility. The castle complex was a small city in itself, housing not only the daimyo and his family, but also his loyal samurai retainers, administrators, artisans, servants, and even gardens designed for aesthetic pleasure and quiet contemplation. The sounds would be a tapestry of courtly life, the soft rustle of silk kimonos, the hushed conversations of advisors, the distant clatter of kitchen activity, and perhaps the gentle murmur of water in a meticulously maintained garden. The daily life of a daimyo revolved around the intricate dance of power and politics. Picture the daimyo seated on his tatami mat, perhaps reviewing reports from his territories, issuing decrees, or receiving emissaries from rival clans. Alliances were constantly shifting, and maintaining loyalty among his vassals was paramount. Political maneuvering was a subtle, high-stakes game played with decorum and veiled threats. Marriages were arranged for strategic advantage, loyalty. Oaths were sworn, and spies, sometimes even ninja, were employed to gather intelligence on rivals. The daimyo's decisions had far-reaching consequences, affecting thousands of lives within his domain. Beyond military and political duties, the daimyo also served as a patron of arts and culture. reflecting their refinement and prestige. Imagine the daimyo observing a skilled calligrapher meticulously forming characters with brush and ink, or witnessing a master artisan creating a beautiful piece of lacquerware. The castle walls might be adorned with exquisite screen paintings depicting historical scenes or serene landscapes. The tea ceremony chanoyu, a highly ritualized and aesthetic practice, was not merely a way to drink tea, but a profound artistic and philosophical experience, fostering tranquility and mindfulness. Imagine the precise movements of the host, the delicate scent of powdered green tea, the quiet appreciation of the meticulously chosen utensils. These cultural pursuits offered a contrast to the brutal realities of warfare, showcasing a different facet of samurai society's sophistication. Even meals were elaborate affairs, far removed from the simple fare of commoners. A daimyo's banquet would feature a wide variety of dishes prepared with fresh ingredients, beautifully presented in fine pottery and lacquerware. Imagine the rich aromas of seasonal delicacies, the soft glow of lanterns, and the restrained conversation among the elite, perhaps accompanied by the gentle strumming of a shamisen. This was a world of refined tastes and abundant resources, a stark contrast to the threadbare existence of the majority of the population. The grand estates surrounding the castle provided the daimyo with both sustenance and leisure. Vast rice paddies managed by administrators and worked by peasant farmers fueled the domain's economy. And for leisure, imagine the daimyo participating in a falconry hunt across open fields, or perhaps observing a formal archery competition. These activities were not just entertainment, they served to reinforce martial skills and demonstrate prowess, even in times of peace. The daimyo's castle, therefore, was a microcosm of feudal Japan's power structure. It represented the ultimate expression of the samurai class's authority, wealth, and cultural refinement. It was a place of immense power, strategic defense, and subtle intrigue, where decisions were made that shaped the destiny of provinces and, collectively, the nation. A life of considerable luxury, yes, but also one burdened by immense responsibility and the constant, underlying threat of warfare and political upheaval. Conclusion. As our gentle journey through the hidden truths of samurai life draws to a close, we can now appreciate the profound layers that existed within this iconic class. We began by imagining the relentless discipline of a young apprentice, facing a life of rigorous training and unwavering adherence to a demanding code. We then walked alongside the singular path of Miyamoto Musashi, a ronin whose quest for perfection transcended conventional boundaries, forging a legacy through relentless self-mastery and profound philosophical insight. We ventured into the shadows to uncover the pragmatic and often misunderstood world of the ninja, revealing their quiet cunning and essential role in the intricate game of espionage. Finally, we glimpsed the opulent yet politically charged existence within a daimyo's castle, a center of power, art, and strategic maneuvering. From the common soldier to the solitary master, from the unseen operative to the feudal lord, each facet of samurai life was shaped by a unique blend of discipline, hierarchy, and a distinct cultural identity. Their world, though distant, offers us a quiet reflection on themes of loyalty, honor, survival, and the persistent human drive for both mastery and meaning. As you drift now, let these images of ancient Japan settle gently in your mind. The rustle of silk, the whisper of steel, the scent of quiet gardens, the distant echoes of a disciplined age. Rest deeply, knowing that the complexities of history, though sometimes challenging, can also be a calming companion as you journey towards a peaceful and restorative sleep. Good night.
Opa! restful. Opa.